The press has actually been fairly bad for Joe Biden. I wouldn't say it's worse than it was for Donald Trump, but Joe Biden's got a lot to account for. The COVID crisis has been only getting worse under his leadership. More vaccine mandates, more lockdowns. The economy is in shambles. Potential crises in Ukraine, maybe even war. And it appears that Joe Biden cares more about that than he cares about our own southern border. But more importantly is the economy and what we can expect in the 2022 midterms. A red wave is being predicted across the board, historically, and as according to the trends we've already seen with some of the elections, such as what happened in Virginia, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And the Biden administration and Democrats know it. One big story that came out recently was that there's been a wave of Democrat retirements in Congress. Now, that alone is enough for Republicans to take back the House. You combine that with the predicted historical shift and maybe a red wave. Oh, it's going to get gnarly. Republicans could have a supermajority. Who knows? I don't want to make that prediction. I made it a few years ago. It wasn't correct. There's still reason to believe the Democrats could actually retain power, but it seems unlikely. The Biden administration, on the other hand, is extremely worried. It is being reported now by CNN, of all outlets, to report this. I was surprised. The Biden administration has been holding secret meetings with news organizations to try and get them to report more positively on the Biden administration and Democrats. And at least according to the reports from CNN, it's working. What's being said by many of these pundits and news organizations is laughable. They're trying to claim now the economy is doing great. They're trying to claim that inflation is actually a good thing. We know that CNN has been reporting these kinds of things. No, the Biden administration has been a disaster. Just recently, Fauci, when he was speaking to the press, he was asked about vaccine mandates. But however, they want to put in these travel mandates for people coming to the U.S. But on the southern border, what's up with that? And Fauci goes, that's a separate issue. There's different things going on there, really. No, the Biden administration they've been spiraling the drain. Now, there are some people. I was talking to Bannon the other day, and they're convinced that this is proof that Trump really won the election. And I think, actually, no, this to me is just, it's probably not evidence of anything, but it says to me, in my opinion, it's proof that Biden won the election. It really is. Joe Biden's approval rating is in the gutter, but it started in the positive. I know a lot of people, regular normies, skateboarders, and minimum wage workers who can't tell you. They couldn't tell you any one of the Supreme Court justices, let alone what a Supreme Court justice is. And they were posting videos dropping their mail-in ballots. Many of these people who voted for Biden because he was just not Trump are now not interested, not voting, or they're realizing what a mistake they've made. And isn't that better anyway? Now, look, I know a lot of people are completely demoralized because of the things that Trump has been saying, and that's a problem. You need to resist that narrative and know that if you get out, you vote in these primaries, you vote locally for your state senators, your state representatives, your governors, your city council, you can affect change. Don't let them get you down. Biden is freaking out because he knows this. They need you demoralized. They need you scared. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend the Republicans are going to save anybody from anything. Mitch McConnell is basically signaling, or at least according to one report, that we're just going to obstruct in 2022 if we win. Are you kidding me? Now, there are some people like Matt Gaetz. They're like, no, we're gonna charge forward. Yes, for once, seeing Republicans actually try to implement policy and repeal bad law would be a good thing. So here's what needs to happen. You at home need to realize there are powerful forces that want you demoralized, thinking you can't affect change. You can. You can get out that vote, but you got to vote in the primaries and make sure, and it's not going to be easy, that the establishment neocon types, the elites, are not the ones that are going to win in 2022. And the only way that happens is not with the Republican Party, it's with the Republican primaries. Because if you leave the party to its own vices, they will actually just bring about more corrupt crony garbage. Mitch McConnell will be like, now that we have power, we're going to do nothing. But if you primary the Republicans, get in some actual populists that actually want to see the American worker be aided, they want to see the border secured. They don't want war in Eastern Europe. It's about getting out and getting to that vote, and you can make that change. But let's go through the news, and I will show you. This should be optimistic for all of you who want to see real change, because as much as it's nasty, the Biden administration is effectively colluding with media. Who's surprised by that? It shows you they know they can and are on track to lose. And before we get started, head over to timcast.com, become a member to help support our work. We've just brought on another journalist. We're going to be hiring more fact checkers. The more you guys join and sign up, the more we are able to do this work. We are not being driven by clicks or narrative or chasing an audience or any of that. No, our goal is to do good reporting, and hopefully that is something y'all want, because that's it. If our path towards monetization is do a good job and let people support you, I would rather have 100 viewers as opposed to 1 million if it means that those viewers are directly supporting us. So the more you guys sign up, the more you help us get more journalists on board. But you also get access to our exclusive members-only segments. We had Steve Bannon on last night. You're not going to want to miss this one. Mostly it was me talking, full disclosure. But I was discussing to him what's going on with censorship, our strategies, and why we do what we do. And I think this would be very enlightening for a lot of you. So please sign up, support our work. But don't forget, like this video, subscribe to this channel, share this show with your friends. Let's get into the news. From the Daily Mail, White House holds secret meetings with news organizations to demand better publicity for Biden, as Washington Post columnist claims president is being treated worse than Trump. Now, that is laughable and untrue. The media was vomiting nonstop over the idea of Trump. According to the Daily Mail, they say 3 senior White House officials have embarked on a campaign to persuade newsroom executives to be more favorable in their coverage of President Joe Biden, according to a report on Tuesday night. The trio, National Economic Council Deputy Directors David Kamen and Bharat Ramamurthy, along with Port's envoy John Porcari, have been briefing major newsrooms over the past week, according to CNN's media correspondent Oliver Darcy. Pay attention to this timeline. Darcy, in his newsletter, said that their outreach was sparked by concern that Biden was not being treated fairly. Darcy wrote, "The officials have been discussing with newsroom trends pertaining to job creation, economic growth, supply chains, and more. The basic argument that has been made that the country's economy is in much better shape than it was last year. I'm told the conversations have been productive, with anchors and reporters and producers getting to talk with the officials." That's right. The Biden administration held secret meetings to these journalists, and it was productive for them. Their lobbying came as on December 3rd, a Washington Post columnist called Dana Bash, I think that's not correct, wrote an op-ed titled "The Media Treats Biden as Badly or Worse Than Trump. Here's Proof." It was Dana Milbank said, Daily Mail, get a copy editor. It's Milbank space said, there you go, that he had grown suspicious about the torrent of negative headlines about Biden and commissioned a study. He asked Forge.ai, a data analytics unit of the information company Fiscal Note, to look at 65 news websites ranging from newspapers to wire services and political publications and do a sentiment analysis of the 200,000 articles by searching for adjectives. Milbank said Forge.ai's data showed the media was treating Biden worse than it had Donald Trump. "My colleagues in the media are serving as accessories to the murder of democracy," he wrote. Yeah, very neutral sounding. Milbank appeared on CNN to defend his theory. So Brianna Keilar apparently hosted him. "August was the turning point," he told the host, Brianna Keilar. "Biden's coverage was more favorable than Trump's before then. There was that honeymoon. Could it have been Afghanistan? Maybe. Even as things have generally improved since then, the coverage has not improved." Milbank added, "It's not bias, it's the actual words we're using. So we are as negative as a collective media on Joe Biden, if not more so than we were to Donald Trump, at a time when he was trying to overthrow democracy." Yes, I trust the guy that characterizes Donald Trump as trying to overthrow democracy. But let me show you a little bit about what they're saying. The outreach by the 3 perhaps paid dividends. At the end of November, the Columbus Dispatch published an op-ed under the headline, "It's time to give Joe Biden his due." Willem Daroe, a guest columnist at the paper and former treasurer for the DNC, detailed how under Biden, the economy was booming. The pandemic was being successfully combated. Companies were thriving and households were benefiting. Absolutely incredible, to say the least. Here's the Washington Post. This is from Dana Milbank. "The media treats Biden as badly or worse than Trump. Here's proof." Proof, you say? A sampling of headlines atop the influential political playbook newsletter over the past month. Let the Democratic freakout begin. That's not about Biden. Dems start to face the hard questions. That's not about Biden. Does the White House owe Larry Summers an apology? Well, I believe it was the law of headlines. I forgot Benford's. No, that's probably wrong. I got that wrong last time. But there's a law. Any headline that asks a question, the answer is no. So that's not negative. The other big intra-Democratic fight. What does that have to do with Joe Biden, you liar? The Democrats are freaking out and these headlines exist because it's true. Democrats are retiring in large numbers. The midterms are coming. Nancy Pelosi is rumored to be out. She's not going to run for re-election. How are those headlines about Joe Biden? Some of them are, for sure. But is that your proof? It's an insane manipulation. This is the game they're trying to play. Ron Klain promotes op-ed claiming sentiment analysis proves media treats Biden worse than Trump. Spare me your lies. From October 2nd, 2017, news coverage of Trump more negative than for other presidents. You mean to tell me that Joe Biden is being treated worse than any other president in history? Okay, you know what? Let me pause for a second. Yeah, that may be true. That may actually be true. Now, I certainly think when you're comparing Biden to Trump, it's ridiculous to say the media treats Biden worse. They translate for him. They ignore his gaffes. But maybe something did change. Maybe August was the turning point. Maybe people are rightly freaking out. And why? Because Biden is failing so miserably that the media can't deny it. In spite of the good things Trump had done for the economy in 2019, and of course, Trump did bad things. I'm not saying that he didn't. The media still just went nuts on the guy. And Joe Biden has been doing bad the whole time, and he still has sycophants. But maybe it's true. Maybe the media is actually reporting negatively on Joe Biden, but maybe you need to get your head out of your rear. It's not because they're simply treating him poorly. It's because he's doing a bad job. Did that ever occur to you? Check this one out. Todd Smith from August 18, 2020, broadcast media coverage of Trump 95% negative. And you're saying that Biden is worse? You guys are writing puff pieces about the dude right now in mainstream press. This is from the Mississippi Business Journal. I want to show you this. Biden's job approval. Right now, it's at 38% according to Civics, which tracks his approval going back to the beginning of his presidency. Now, Real Clear Politics has the aggregate, and he's around 41%. I think the aggregate is a better reflection because there are some that show him to be doing well. But I use Civics because I want to highlight independent voters. Independent voters are currently have Joe Biden at a 27% approval rating. And on the national economy, independent voters currently feel that the economy is 42% very bad, 29% fairly bad, 22% fairly good, but only 3% say it's very good. Now, I like Civics because it can highlight very easily by political affiliation. Of course, Republicans do believe the economy is pretty bad. They say 62% very bad. And of course, Democrats say it's fairly good. This one to me is nuts. How are Democrats claiming the economy is fairly good is beyond me, because by every metric, we are in serious trouble here. But it's tribalism. We get it. They're going to keep defending Joe Biden, acting like the economy is doing well. It's not. So ignore the partisans and look to the independents, who tend to lean slightly to the left, according to some metrics. There's also some new metrics that don't reference independent voters, but say that politically uninitiated people have a tendency to be more right-leaning. But independent voters do have a bias towards the Democrats. And you can see they think the economy is bad. I mean, they're in the plurality, overwhelmingly. And they're going to come out and try and make the claim that Joe Biden's got the economy handled well, that COVID is going well. Yeah, it's not. Take a look at this from WebMD. This is not even a news source. This is WebMD. U.S. COVID-19 deaths in 2021 surpass 2020 total. Yeah. Handling it well, Joe Biden? I certainly think we can look to Ron DeSantis to see someone who's handling it well, better than most of these other jurisdictions in the United States. Some might argue, yeah, but, Florida's weather. And I've pointed out, too, yes, you could argue that. But I think it's also fair to then point out Texas, for instance, which isn't doing as well. Something Florida is doing is working. That's leadership. And I don't know what it is or why. could be incidental, but it seems like DeSantis has a handle on things, at least relative to the rest of the country. Joe Biden, however, no. WebMD says overall, more than 771,000 COVID-19 deaths have been reported in the U.S. during the pandemic, about 385,000 in 2020 and more than 386,000 in 2021. You mean to tell me that even with the vaccine, the mandates, the lockdowns, it's still worse this year? And I'm supposed to be happy with Joe Biden? Spare me. I don't want to hear it. For them to come out and say that Joe Biden is doing well is a lie. It's a manipulation. And that's what the Biden administration is doing. Going to the press and convincing them this is the case, and then people write it. It's patently absurd. From Politico. New Jersey's most powerful Democratic boss predicts midterm carnage. George Norcross says nobody in the state predicted last week's losses for the party. It was just a tsunami. Now, this was from just about a month ago, November 8th. New Jersey's kingmaker didn't see it coming. George Norcross, the South Jersey insurance executive who leads one of the most powerful Democratic organizations in the country, had no idea Governor Phil Murphy's victory over Jack Ciattarelli would come down to just a couple of points. He didn't see the Democrats losing half a dozen seats to the Republican Party that's been in decline since Chris Christie left the State House 4 years ago. He certainly didn't see his close friend and political ally, State Senate President Steve Sweeney, losing an election to an unknown truck driver. This is why the Democrats are in full panic mode. This is why they're freaking out. Again, no guarantee that they're going to lose in the midterms, but I certainly think that's the case. And this is one of the things that frustrates me the most about the fraud narrative. From, look, even Steve Bannon coming on the show last night and saying that he thinks Trump won all that stuff. And I'm like, dude, it's demoralizing. We've not seen any of the hard evidence. They had an audit in Arizona. What's going on? Even Trump supporters are asking about it. I'm more than willing to assess hard data. I've met with some of these people. I've looked at the data, and some of it is questionable. But that's all I can really say. You know what I think? I think people don't like Donald Trump, and a lot of people really like Donald Trump. I think the media went insane against Donald Trump to the point where it actually worked, driving regular people to go and vote. I think that people were locked down the entire year, and the only media they were getting was election, Trump, 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 Trump. People I knew who didn't care about this were going out and voting, as I stated earlier. People who normally would prefer to watch movies weren't getting movies. Who want to watch sports weren't getting sports. The only thing they got for the entire year was Orange Man bad, and the pandemic is his fault. When Trump started speaking these press conferences, his approval rating reached its highest aggregate position for his entire presidency because people were saying, tell me what's going on, and they were slowly not blaming Trump. So, of course, the media said, stop showing this stuff. It's helping. I think the media played a dirty game. I think they collude with Democrats, and that's what we're seeing now. I certainly think there was a shadow campaign to fortify the election. But that meant changing laws a year in advance. It meant campaigning efforts on the ground, canvassing, and it meant that the rules were changed in many places in such a way that greatly benefited Democrats. And that means that right now, the panic you are seeing among Democrats, what just happened in New Jersey, that means you can win. It means it's possible to be optimistic and that they know they are on track to lose. But when people come out and they play this game like it's impossible to win, or at the very least, the Democrats, they're using illicit means, and I'm just like, all you're doing is demoralizing people, dude. I get it. So, you know what? I agree with Bannon when they say we should investigate, November 3rd. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I think we should definitely do investigations. They did a forensic audit in Arizona. What's going on? What's going on with it? Now, I've read it. We've had the people here. We've talked to them, and I've seen it. And there's a lot of questionable data, but there's still a lot more they say they got to do. Well, now they got to do the canvas. Great. Look, man, I'm with it. I'm hearing. I hear you. Let me know what you find. For the time being, let's make sure we rally the troops. And what I mean by that is the activism. We rally everybody. Hoorah! We're going to get out. We're going to vote in the primaries. We're going to vote local. We're going to get the governorships. We're going to get populist libertarian type people, not big L, little L libertarian type people, national populist types, to get in, run for office, and win. Because if you sit back and you say, well, I don't got to vote until November, wrong. You're going to end up with establishment neocon versus establishment Democrat. And you're going to have one guy going, I believe my opponent's taxation doesn't go too far or doesn't go far enough or whatever. I'm screwing up the Futurama joke. I believe your tax policy goes too far. Well, I believe your tax policy doesn't go too far enough. That's what you'll get. Vote local. And you can see those changes. And we saw it. An unknown truck driver. The Democrats are sweating bullets, my friends. Look at this one from The Hill. New poll shows challenges for challenges for Democrats ahead of 2020. Just from a couple days ago. CNN. History says Biden and Democrats probably won't recover by the midterms. From the New York Times. Let me tell you right here. This is a warning for the Democrats. What is the branding problem in a nutshell? A pollster says people think we're more focused on social issues than the economy. He goes on to say the number one issue for women, the economy, the number one issue for black voters, the economy, the number one issue for Latino voters, the economy. I'm not advocating us for ignoring social issues. But when you think broadly about voters, they actually all want us talking about the economy and doing things to help them out economically. And if the economy is this bad, and it is bad, Democrats are naturally going to be worried because they have nothing to say. And you know what? The American people see it. Let's jump back to civics. Democratic Party favorable rating. Among independent voters, the Democrats are at 20% favorable, 68% unfavorable. Now, let me show you this. This one surprised the heck out of me. The Republican Party. Independent voters have a 61% unfavorable view of the Republicans and a 20% favorable view of the Republicans. 18% are unsure. 12% are unsure of the Democrats. Now, you may be saying, but wait a minute, Tim. Independents view them both at the same level of favorability. But there are two important things to point out. One, that independents have a more unfavorable view of Democrats, which means the swing voters are going to be going to the Republican Party. And also, over the past few months, Democratic approval among independents has been going down. Republican approval among independents is going up. I don't like the Republican Party. Look at this. Intelligencer. Mitch McConnell signals GOP will run on pure obstruction in the midterms. I loathe the Republicans. Loathe. Trump is very different. And I'm not even the biggest fan of Trump, to be completely honest. He's just not all that bad. And they certainly lied about him in the media. There were a lot of things he was presenting that were pretty good. Hey, in ending the war, those efforts, I appreciate it. Was he perfect on it? No. Weapons deals with Saudi Arabia, pretty bad. Starving out Yemen, not a good thing. Missile strikes in Syria, commando raids in Yemen, yeah, all really bad things. But I'll take what I can get. I'm not going to sit here and act like Trump is a god emperor. Maybe a meme or a joke here or there. But I certainly think I will take something better than what we're being offered. Mitch McConnell embodies establishment garbage politics, and people keep voting for the guy. Primary him, please. And then they're like, yeah, but what happens then if we lose? No, people are going to vote Republican no matter what. If this guy can keep getting elected, get out in those primaries. Primary these people. Running on obstruction. Absolutely incredible. Well, there's still some good news here because regardless of what the Republicans do run on, we have this from the Soapbox, New Republic. The 2022 midterms are shaping up to be a blue wave of retirements. With partisan redistricting favoring the GOP in an increasingly toxic environment on Capitol Hill, more and more Democrats are opting to leave the House. CNN reports Democrats officially have a retirement problem. Good. Leave. You know, there are a lot of really awful, scummy people in Congress across the board for a variety of reasons, and I am annoyed by so much. One thing that I brought up a few times. I got a text message. So this is really funny. You know, they try to smear me all the time, and they're like, you know, a Daily Beast wrote that I've donated to multiple Republicans. And then when they tried putting that on Wikipedia, the editors were like, I looked it up. Tim Pool donated to 6 Democrats and 2 Republicans. So to say multiple in reference to 2 and then to exclude that he donated to more Democrats, You see how the media game is played. But I will point out that Democrats do have a retirement problem because people don't want to be associated with a losing party. Nancy Pelosi certainly doesn't want to be there. And I certainly think it's important that we stand up to corrupt officials. Now, I'm not confident in the Democrats at all. Not at all. There's probably not a Democrat that I would consider donating to at this point. And so while in the past I did, today I wouldn't. But donating to the Democrats resulted in something funny. And this is what I was going to say I brought up before. Because I did, I started getting text messages from these Democrats. One was running against Lauren Boebert in Colorado. Did she text me to tell me that she has a strong plan for Medicare or Medicaid for all? No. Did she message me and say, we want to make sure we can focus on kitchen table issues? No. She texted me, and it was a campaign text, I'm not like I know her, and said, help me stop Lauren Boebert. And I said, from what? You're not campaigning on anything other than hatred, vile, disgusting hatred. I bring you now to Axios. Young Democrats more likely to despise the other party. This is it right here. This is the image you need to share with people from Axios. This is what you need to share with people. College students who would not blank someone who voted for the opposing presidential candidate. Let me just show you. 71% of young Democrats would not date a Republican. 41% of young Democrats would not shop at a business or support a business if it was Republican. 37% won't be friends with them. 30% won't work with them. Among Republicans, it's way low. 31% of Republicans won't date Democrats, but only 7% won't support a business. Only 5% won't be friends with, only 7% won't work for. Republicans are too tolerant. I know I'm kidding. Republicans are tolerant. So many people say Tim's biased because he rags on the Democrats all the time. Yeah, the Republicans suck too. But the Republicans do very little. They obstruct. So what? That's what I've been saying for years. I'm like, what am I going to complain to the Republicans for? They stand there obstinate with their arms crossed. Democrats are pushing policy to burn this country to the ground. And the tribalism of the Democratic Party is burning this country to the ground. Rand Paul came out recently and said we should stop selling weapons to Saudi Arabia if they're going to keep starving out the people of Yemen. And Bernie Sanders then goes, I am in the uncomfortable and unusual position of agreeing with Senator Rand Paul. And I'm like, that's despicable, Bernie. What are you talking about? You agree with Rand Paul on like 80% of issues. And that's, I should say probably true. Probably not true, to be completely honest. I'm being hyperbolic. But Rand Paul and Bernie agree on so much. Bernie, you're a tribalist. And I find that detestable. Just come out and be like, thank you, Senator Rand Paul. I agree with you. Let's work towards ending these atrocities. Instead, they go, oh, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to agree with someone. I can't stand these people, man. And this poll shows it. Exactly what I'm talking about. Look, we have people on Timcast IRL we disagree with. I disagree with Steve Bannon. We've argued about the voter stuff. And and it's frustrating to me. I'm like, it's demoralizing. It's voter suppression. And I've not seen the hard evidence. And they're like, but we've got anomalies. And I'm like, that's great. It doesn't prove what you're saying it proves. Now, you're allowed to infer from that evidence. I'm fine with that. But I need hard evidence, and I need people to stand strong and believe that we have a chance to bring in some principled politicians, more people like Rand Paul. But you're going to have to primary. But anyway, look, I digress. I think Steve Bannon's a smart guy. I don't think he's a perfect dude, but we have excellent conversations, and we agree on enough. But why is it that I can get Steve Bannon, Alex Jones to come on my show, but the leftists, they don't want to do it? Now, and it's not even most leftists. I mean, look. We've invited tons of moderate leftists on the show and leftists who agree we're anti-establishment. They won't do it. I don't want to name drop them. I don't want to drag them through the mud because I don't think they're bad people. But there are certainly people who are progressive and populist left that we are cool with. And they're just like, I can't do it. Why? Because of this right here. Because the overall tribe of the left, they despise the right to a greater degree than the right does. Nearly 2-1 in some instances, but way more than that. What is that, like 5-1? 7-1? They really, really, really just hate. And that's their MO. So I come out here. I'll give you an example. There's a guy who tweeted that, clips of me praising him because he wrote a meme about Epstein at Art Basel. And I said it was great. It was epic. Yeah, I hate Art Basel. I really, really hate Art Basel. It's this big snooty art thing in Miami. I don't like it. And so a dude shows up, paints an Epstein thing on the wall, and then he's basically deriding me for it or using me as a point of contention to mock me or whatever because he's like, conservatives like your boy Trump, and Trump was on the Lolita Express with Epstein. And so I just posted a clip literally from last week where I'm like, yep, we talked about it. We've talked about it, I think, like 24 times. Not dedicated much on the live show because of the nature of the conversations, but we did a private members only where we legit was like, what do you think Trump was doing on Lolita Express? Probably the same as Bill Clinton or Bill Gates. I'm not going to cut anybody slack. You want to fly in that plane? I'm not playing any games. There's no logical argument to it. But a lot of people who are Trump supporters are like, yeah, well, Trump came out and spoke ill of him after the fact. And, that's true. Trump was like, this guy's nasty. So maybe the story is Trump flew on the plane. The pilot said he was his wingman. Maybe then Trump realized what was going on. I was like, yeah, I'm out. But I'm not going to sit here and act like we can prove any of that. These people just want to deride. They want to mock because they're tribalists. That's what they care about. So the problem is, as Bernie stated, he perfectly exemplified this. You or I, populists, we can look to these left populists and be like, hey, we agree on that stuff. Can we work towards that? And they'll say, no, screw you, fascist, F off. And then nothing gets done. And then they go and vote for Biden. Not all of them, but enough of them. Didn't ContraPoints, the YouTuber, be like, we've got to vote for Biden to stop Trump or something like that? Blech. Yeah, support the establishment because Trump is bad. Trump's anti-establishment. I'll take what I can get. But here you go. Biden's colluding with the establishment. The Democrats are panicked. So we'll see how all that plays out. Make sure you come out tonight. Hang out live at youtube.com/TimCastIRL, 8 p.m. We're going to be talking about all this stuff. Should be a lot of fun. Anyway, thanks for hanging out for now, and we'll see you all tonight at 8 p.m.